Hello and welcome to the College Baseball Advisors podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni. Very happy to be here. Those of you that have followed my podcast in the past, it was previously called And That's the Game podcast, presented by Pro Batter Sports. Very excited to announce that the podcast has been acquired by the CoachCast Network, where greatness listens. This is a new venture of like-minded people across all sports that are basically interviewing coaches and players and further helping to educate people in their various sports. Obviously, my topic is baseball. Nothing will change other than where the podcast is housed and where you can find it. The content will be the same. And in keeping with that, in today's episode, we have the head coach from the University of Maine, Nick Derba. Great conversation with Nick, really kind of an old school, tough baseball guy from Queens, Italian, catcher, looks tough, looks like a boxer. But we talk a lot about his background of, growing up and his sports and his recruiting experience and what got him to Manhattan. And then, of course, getting drafted out of Manhattan by the Cardinals. We talked about his minor league playing time. We talked about getting out of that and into coaching and his journey from, volunteer assistant all the way up to an assistant coach at Maine and then associate head coach at Maine and then the head coach at University of Maine. So we talked a lot about his journey and, of course, kind of his coaching style, a little bit about the University of Maine and really what he's looking for in both recruits and things that he's seen of players that he's coached that make them ultimately most successful on the field, and then, of course, even successful if baseball is not what they're able to do after college. Again, this is Wayne Mazzoni, College Baseball Advisors. My background is 30 years as a college baseball coach. I'm currently a college baseball recruiting advisor. For more information on that, visit collegebaseballadvisor.com. And without further delay, here is my interview with Nick Derba, head coach at the University of Maine. Awesome. So, Nick, I'm very excited to have you here. This podcast, and in this modern world where everyone's got a podcast, it's kind of overwhelming with the amount of information. But to me, it's just two dudes that wouldn't have this hour to spend together, getting to know each other a bit. The only thing I know about you is that you're a kind of an intimidating-looking, bearded, bald-headed Italian guy from Queens. So start off with that that piece. You are Italian, correct?
I'm full blood according to our genealogy. We actually were Derbas before we came over, and we got shortened to Derba. But people think I'm Polish because I don't know why with my last name, but I'm all Italian. I'm very proud of it. It's a good it's a good loud group of people if you know the culture. So yeah.
Yeah, well, not that this is about me, but it's very funny because it's rare that you have a Wayne with an Italian. So I'm half Italian. My uncle Wayne was in Vietnam when I was born, and he's like, basically, I'm not going to make it. Name someone after me. So my middle name is Aldo, which is my grandfather's, name. So yeah, it's nice. A couple of Italian. First of all, we want everyone in all walks of life to listen.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So I know a good enough amount about you, but there's a lot of gaps to fill in. So I'll start with this. I know you were born in College Point, Queens. Were you raised in the same spot?
Yeah, born and raised, same house. And then the first time I moved out was when, I went to college, Manhattan College. And I really wasn't that far, right? I mean, the BX and the Bronx and Queens are like two different countries at times, but I wasn't that far, It was it's a 17-minute drive, no traffic, or 3.5 hours, depending on how you. Right? So that's how it is.
And you know what though? It's so funny. Like when everyone says, "Well, without traffic," I go, "You should almost basically not say that anymore." I mean, obviously you're up in Maine where
there is no traffic.
There is no traffic here, which is incredible. But like I'm in Connecticut, I-95. Well, if no traffic, well, don't even say that anymore. This 2 a.m. there's traffic. So growing up, obviously we know baseball is a huge part of it, which we'll get into. Were you playing other sports growing up in Queens, or was it baseball only?
So I actually, baseball was kind of like the thing I played with my friends in the schoolyard. My father coached me in Little League, College Point Little League. I loved basketball. I loved basketball, loved hockey. We played a lot of roller hockey. I mean, we played, I didn't play any football. My father coached football in high school. I wasn't allowed to play organized, but I played, in the schoolyards, every single Sunday, we were out there ripping it, beating each other up. So I played everything. I played as much as I possibly could. I played even when I went to Archbishop Malloy in high school. I ran track and played baseball. Played hockey, not for the team, but roller hockey for my first 2 years. But I played everything. Man, like summers were morning. I'd wake up and go smash. We'd go and play stickball in the schoolyard, and then play some basketball right after lunch. And that's what we did, right? It was you played sports, so I played everything.
It's funny you said stickball because that was a big part of my growing up. And actually, I ordered a stickball bat, which I just got a notification is coming tomorrow because my son with 2 strikes is not doing what I think he should be doing. So I'm going to get some tennis balls and I'm going to just drill him and see if he could fend me off with 2 strikes. But that's kind of a lost art. And stickball was so awesome, man.
Oh man, it's funny to think back now. We had had so much fun. There were so many street fights because of stickball, but but it was your entire day was wrapped around playing the game and not getting hit by a car. Kind of thing.
Right.
It was great. It was great.
And obviously, I know you're a catcher. When you were in high school, did you just catch?
So I made my high school team my freshman year as a shortstop.
Okay.
And we had a guy named Michael Schatzel who was really good. He was a freshman, played over me every day. I DH'd and played a little infield on the JV team. And then Schatz had a transfer, went to a crosstown rival, and that was when I really started catching. And I caught the rest of my high school time. I played a little bit of third, a little bit of short, a little bit of outfield with the Bayside Yankees. They're not even around anymore, but in summer baseball. And that was it, right? Mainly caught in high school though, with Malloy.
So 2 things there. So you said you ran track too?
Yeah, I ran indoor track sophomore and junior year. I ran track.
And at that point, was it like, hey, I'm doing this for fun to get faster at baseball, or you were just into it? Because there's not a lot of catchers running track that I'm aware of.
No, so I don't think many catchers running track. I was a decent runner, but I ran it because I didn't, like I said, I didn't really love baseball until I got to a freshman year, and we started playing much more competitive baseball. And I remember really seeing getting there my freshman year, playing and seeing kids that were just way better than me. And for whatever reason, it made me fall in love with the sport in a different way. And that's all I wanted to do. I was like, you know what? I'm playing baseball. I'm going to get good at this thing. For whatever reason. And then sophomore year, I'm like, I probably should try to get a little faster. It might be something that really would help me out. And I ran track, and I'll tell you what, I didn't love practicing track. It was grueling. It was hard.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this: I have never been in any scenario where I was more nervous to compete.
Wow.
It was I remember standing there on the line, waiting for the stick pass in a 4x4, and just straight up shaking. Being so nervous. But I loved running. I loved competing. And, and I think it helped me. I didn't get I was a decent runner. I got slower for sure as I continued to catch.
Right.
But,
No, that's cool. That's a whole world that's kind of far. The whole track world is kind of foreign to me, but yeah, that's especially when you're in a relay and people are counting on you. And yeah, it's got to be also, you just want to start the race and you got to wait for the baton before you can get motored.
You got to wait, man. You got to wait. But I'll tell you what, it did help. I think playing any other sport just helps with what sports you come across. You learn I learned how to compete in a very different way. Something that you never really think about, but that was probably the closest thing to stepping in a box by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, one thing I don't want to pass over was Bayside Yankees, which back in so I don't know if you ever did this. I'm 55, so even though we both got some gray, I'm significantly older than you. We used to call from the office coaching just to hear Mark Cassetta's voicemail. And we would do it over and over and over again. America's team. I mean, holy cow, man.
A twilight doubleheader, right? Like that was, but those teams are so good. Those teams are so good. I mean, I missed the Bay State Yankees in so many ways. But Mark Cassetta was his voicemail was the best thing.
Yeah. I mean, that was in the era when everyone on that team was playing some level of college baseball, if not getting drafted. And we know how the world has changed with a million teams and, of course, kind of watered down. But boy, those were some heck of incredible teams at that, at the stage that you played in before, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking like some of the guys. I mean, over the course of 3 years, I mean, there was, I'm just trying to think of just the big leaguers alone. Pedro Alvarez was on the team. Jason Donald, Mike Baxter. Those are just 3 quick names I just remember that played the big leagues.
Yeah.
Everybody played high level D2, D1. I mean, there were kids going to Vandy.
Right.
I mean, it was nuts. It was nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, tell me about recruiting. Obviously, you get to Manhattan. Was that a lot of people on you? Was that a total different era? Did you go to Manhattan because it was more of, hey, this is where I live. I can get there. It's D1 ball. Tell me about that whole, process.
I mean, I wanted to play Division I baseball, but I wanted to be a doctor. That's what I wanted to be. I was in and I quite honestly, playing professionally was just a dream. It wasn't something I was trying to be, right? It was more of a cool factor. So, the school I chose, I chose Manhattan College. The schools that I think that I probably had the most interest from were Holy Cross. Ed Najarian was the head coach there. Stony Brook, Manhattan College. Those were the 3 big schools that the 3 most recruited schools I spoke with. And it really came down to Manhattan or Stony Brook. And the only reason why that I think I picked Manhattan, looking back on it, was that I was I think I could probably play here sooner, with just where the schools were at the time.
Right.
And that was all that's why I picked it. It was a good school. It wasn't.
Who was the coach then?
Steve Trimper.
It was Trimp. Okay, I figured. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Which he probably did a pretty good job of recruiting you too. He's a heck of a recruiter.
Yeah, I mean, that guy could sell. He could sell. Catch a popsicle to a woman in white gloves. But he's great. Right, the guy's fantastic at what he does. And ultimately, when it came down to it, Manhattan was the right fit. I enjoyed my time with Coach Trimper. I enjoyed my time with the players that were nearby. And I just thought, hey, you know what? It's a good school. I can get a good education there. I can go on a medical school, and maybe I'll play by second year. That's what I was hoping for.
So, were you a pre-med major?
I was pre-med. I got my minor in psychology and chemistry. I wanted to be a pediatrician. That's what I wanted to be.
So let's go with this. Obviously, we'll get back to the baseball piece. Let's say you turned out to not be very good as a baseball player and go on to get drafted as you did. Do you think you would have pursued that route? Were you locked in that was going to be your path?
That was what I was going to do. And honestly, even when I got done playing, I retired. I applied to medical school. I really was I was going to go. But, the funny thing is that every time I would talk about what I was going to do with my life, I kept going back to saying, how am I going to be involved in baseball while having a full-time job? And then Trimp called me up and was like, Derbs, you want to coach, man? I'm like, I probably should. I probably should at least see what it's like. But yeah, I wanted to be a pediatrician. I mean, there was nothing else in my world that I wanted to be more than that until I realized, hey, baseball's real. I'm actually pretty good at it. Maybe I can go and play.
Do you know where? Is anyone in the family a doctor? Do you know how is that just a natural something you were just good at science into that helping profession? I mean, that's honestly, I've done a bunch of these. You're the first one that's everyone else would probably go the business route or high school teaching. That's pretty impressive, man.
I was like a sickly little kid. I always had ear infections and stuff. And my pediatrician was an amazing man, Dr. Bernstein, and he was out in Kew Gardens. Awesome dude. And I remember just being, thinking, I mean, my mother will attest to this. I must have been like 6 years old, 5 years old, going, I want to be a baby doctor. That's all I want to be. And my little guy right here. Sorry.
Hey, no, he's good. He's good. Welcome to the podcast, little man.
Hey, what's up? And I'll tell you what, like, even to this, like, I think what's cool about being a baseball coach is that for me, like, children are the most important thing in the entire world. And I think that's really like why I think I love doing this so much, is because I'm kind of following both of my true loves, right? Like I love baseball, and little kids are awesome. Like they're our future, and it's just it's a great combination for me.
Yeah, no, that's tremendous. And at what stage at Manhattan did you realize, hey, I'm pretty darn good, and I've got a shot to play after college? I mean, I know you played in the Cape. When was the first summer? After what year at Manhattan did you play in the Cape?
So my freshman summer, I went up there halfway through, and I played some third base in the Cape.
Wow.
And my first at bat was against Tim Lincecum.
Oh my God, dude!
And that was a really fast at bat. Like that was 3 pitches. All right, 3 pitches. But with that being said, I don't know. Like I don't really know. I think like the first time was like, I went to a couple of workouts after high school. Jim Brett's, Jim Brett,
of course.
These guys are legends. I just thought it was like a favor to Jack Curran, who was our baseball coach, who was a legendary coach.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I guess like I really started thinking about maybe being like a pro was a real possibility when, after my sophomore, junior year, somewhere around there, I saw some players. I was like, I'm better than this kid going in the draft. And I was like, all right, like maybe I can, but the thing is for me was when I got drafted, it was more of like I was winning an award, right? And this is where I think I missed the mark as a pro. And I tell my players this all the time. I went into professional baseball saying, hey, I hope I play AA baseball. That's my goal. Right. And I realized that, and it was too late when I got to AA and I got to AAA. I actually went to AAA before I went to AA because they needed some catchers. Okay.
Right.
When I got to AAA for the first time, it was almost really too late for my mindset. Like I already put some habits in place that I wasn't going to be a big leaguer. And I was in pro ball because I was like, this is like almost like a waiting game for me for my next step.
Right.
And, I wish that I would have had a little more confidence in, hey, I can be a big leaguer, it's cool to be a pro. And that's something that I think about, and by the time I was like, hey, I might be in the big leagues, I was already too far into it to really be able to like change my mindset. And then maybe more importantly, change the thoughts of people around me about me. Right. Like that's which matters. Right. But, at a certain point you realize, hey, these guys are better than me, maybe physically, but certainly they were better than me. And they were much more regimented and more dedicated. When I went home, I was working my butt off, but I was also, hey, I want to try to make some money so I can pay rent, right? Like, so this, there's things that change and things that go into your mindset. And I think that's the biggest thing in today's game. Players are walking into college way more physical than they ever have been. They are way closer to being physically ready for professional baseball, but I still think, and even mentally, but I think at the skill level at times, the gameplay aspect is still at the same level as it was always.
Yeah, I think it's because the modern world, we could do another whole talk on this of the way the training is in so many ways. It's so much better to build bigger, better machines that hit harder and throw harder, but it doesn't necessarily mean guys are getting more outs than they ever have, or have more command, or can handle a bat than ever before. Some certainly can, but I mean, would you agree that the athlete is a more powerful athlete, but it's not like the game is, just as you said, the game isn't automatically just better because of how much training they're putting in.
I would agree 100%. And I think, there are times in a 9-inning game where I think that if we all sit back, we can say the game is better and the game got worse and the game is the same, right? And it's not a knock on anybody. I just think this is the ebb and flow of athletics in general.
Right.
But what I can say with great certainty is that these kids I don't know if I'm playing Division I baseball today. Like if I walked in at Manhattan College, same Nick Derba, 5'10", 165, at what I was in high school, I don't know if I'm better than anybody on that roster. We're Manhattan University now, sorry. So anybody on that roster. And, I played a pretty good high-level baseball. I don't know if I can do that. So it's really the high-level talent is still the high-level talent. It's the guys that were like me, that were like fringy, kind of good. That's where like those kids have gotten so much better. Like, my goodness. Right. Those guys are walking in at 5'10", 195, and they like can hit a ball off the fence, where I was like, I hope I one hop it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When I watch these regionals that are ending into the supers and you get to the College World Series, I remember last year going, I feel like I'm looking at adult men in AA. Like these are big, even like second basemen are strong and jacked, et cetera. One comment, one question about your minor league time. What you said about your whole frame of mind is interesting, but I bet you that whole thing has helped you become a better coach, just understanding what you were like back then as a player, for sure. Anything specific? I mean, I had you to recapture. It's tough to recap several years in one question, but is there any particular player, any particular in the minor leagues where that you take away and go, that was awesome, that was cool to be around this guy or this environment or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, I could rattle off 3 real quick for you, but then I probably have like 50 of them, and I'll tell you my first. Here are the top 3 for me.
Yep.
Number 1, my first spring training happened to be my first big league camp as well. So I walked into the Cardinals clubhouse in 2008. Okay. So I was drafted in 07. They won the World Series just recently. And the first person I literally like turned the corner, bump into is Albert Pujols. And I'm like, I'm not gonna hit his belly button, like. So, and then I just kind of like, whoa, and then like Tony La Russa walks in. You got Juan Gonzalez was on the roster that year. Yadier Molina. I mean, Chris Carpenter, Adam Wainwright. These guys. I mean, just Jason Isringhausen. Oh man. And I realized, I'm like, whoa, like this is okay. Here I am. And then the other piece was watching Mike Trout and Nolan Arenado. So I saw them both in AA. And that was the first time watching, especially Mike Trout, where I watched somebody go, oh, okay. Like the hype is real. And I think he was underhyped. And then Nolan Arenado was the first guy that I really started to like watch about hitting. Like, so just really start to like Josh. This is when Josh Donaldson starts to really become like the best hitter in baseball for, what I mean?
Yes.
So this is where like, and Twitter's starting to become a thing, right? So like Xavier Scruggs was a teammate of mine. X is now on MLB. He was like one of the first Twitter guys I could ever remember. And I remember him talking about swing stuff. And like, I never really got into that as a player. And then watching Nolan Arenado, and I remember thinking he's swinging a 34-inch bat, but it looks like it's 45 inches.
Right.
I'm behind the plate and like the bat is blurred across the entire strike zone. And I remember being like, okay, I need to learn about this. And those are the 3 memories that I queue up every time I think about my history in the minor leagues. And it's really, and they were really good learning curves. I mean, there's a lot that goes into each one of them, but the Nolan Arenado and Mike Trout were the first times where I was like, skill level, I'm not there. And not many people are.
No, that's a great story. I mean, the two guys that told me similar stories that I coached at Sacred Heart, Jason Foley, Zach Short, who were in the big leagues with the Tigers, they're like, meeting Miguel Cabrera was like, crazy. And the guy they talk about as being a guy they're in awe of is Ohtani. How like like the pro guys are in awe of Ohtani for his skill set, which is incredible. When you were towards the end of realizing my minor league career, this is going to end, was back to school, medical school still in the cards then, or did you entertain coaching? You did talk about how Trimp was the one who kind of, I believe, if you said that correctly, he's the one who kind of got you back into it. But were you going in the minor leagues? Were you going, hey, it's time to apply to medical school?
So, my final All-Star break, Trimp calls me up and goes, "Hey, you need to start. Like, I don't know what you're doing. I'm watching, your numbers. Stop doing that. I'm watching your numbers. Blah blah blah. No, please, seriously." And
I like that ice pop he's got, by the way. It's making me thirsty.
And he goes, I'm watching your numbers. It might be time. Maybe you think about coaching. I don't know. I said, that's fine. I said, I'll get back to you in the fall. Maybe I'll come up and check out Maine. Just get like that. And I got home, and it was time to start lifting. And I show up to Manhattan College. At the time, still Manhattan, not Manhattan University. And I go get under the rack to go start lifting. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this today. So I left, drove home, 45 minutes, drove home. And then I started to think about, like, what am I going to do? So I did start applying to medical school. I did physical therapy. I went and worked part-time as a physical therapy assistant the years prior. I applied to PA school. I did medical school. I'm starting to get myself ready. And I applied to everything. And then ultimately the reason why I decided to take the offer for the following year to start to coach in Maine was I knew the one thing that I had to do was I had to continue my education in some capacity.
Right.
So Maine was a part-time job. I was going to get some credits paid for. And I decided, you know what? I'll go get my MBA. I'll see what this coaching thing's about. And when it's all said and done, I'll move on. Baseball's been great for me. Baseball's been very good to me. Is Sammy Sosa, and who else would say that?
Right. Yeah.
So we had to go and do that. So I went and did that. Got my MBA, and I said, "Hey, let's just see what happens." Steve Trimper, Trimp. Yep. And so I just decided that, hey, this is what I need to do. I need to go and get my MBA.
No, all right. Start with that though. Obviously, all the stuff you've talked about has been medical, science, PT. Was the MBA basically because that's what they offered? Did they not have something else that you could do that would manage being coaching at the same time?
Yeah. So the MBA was more because I had a biology degree. Yes, I had a biology degree. So, and the only thing you could do with a biology degree is go back to school for more or go into a lab. And I wasn't about to go into a lab. So right. The MBA piece really was, hey, you know what? Like, I'm doing some continuing education. It'll at least diversify my resume for medical school. I know I can do this and coach. And then right. I was like, you know what? Like, if I need to go get a job afterwards, at least the MBA can help me do that, right? Like, it retools you to move into the working world. So that's why I chose it, really.
So what year was that? That was 2016?
2016, I graduated with my MBA.
Okay. And then I know you also, obviously you played in Chatham, and then was there a summer you went back and coached in Chatham? That was before that time? Tell me about that coaching in Chatham.
I think I 2013 was my first fall that I was really like trying to figure it out. 2014 spring, I did some volunteer work at Manhattan College. And that 2014 summer, I did the Chatham. I did Chatham. Maybe it was 13. I'm not sure. But it was either 13 that all happened or 14 that all happened. I'm not really sure. I probably should know that, but it doesn't matter. And that's how it kind of went. And I knew I was going to come up to Maine and coach before all that happened. And then, I turned down some big league camp opportunities for spring training before all the, while this was happening. And, here we are. I was never, if you ask 16-year-old Nick Derba what I would never be, would be a college baseball coach or anything in pro scouting. I was very, now I look back, I was intimidated by it all. And I hated it. I hated it. I hated the recruiting process. I hated it more than anything in the entire world. In this weird way, I didn't really like college scouts, just scouts in general.
Right.
Probably because I felt so uncomfortable about it all, But crazy. It's crazy how the world works.
So how long ultimately now have you been at Maine consecutively?
So I think this is my 11th year head in assistant coaching.
Okay, so you went from that first was basically a part-time job with Trimp. Trimp left when?
So, oh boy, man, this is
well, you don't have to give me the exact, but like how many years after you were at Maine?
I did 1 year as this number 2. I did it.
Yep.
Then I got promoted. This is my second year. I was there. I think I did 2 years as his number 1 assistant and 1 as an associate head.
Yeah.
I think it was December of 2016. It could have been December of 2017, but that's when Trimp left mid-year to go to Stetson.
Right.
And I took over the interim piece in January, and I've been here. I've been the head coach pretty much ever since.
Okay, so a couple of questions about that. Obviously, you're a great baseball guy. I know enough to that. I know you're a great presenter at coaches' conventions. Frankly, you got put into a head coaching job pretty early in terms of your coaching career. That's what I was going to ask you. Did you feel like, hey, I got this from all my years of playing in minors, or like, there's a lot to do in this gig?
No, I mean, man, that was wow. Wow. What a I wasn't ready. Like, here's what I think. I think I was very good at developing players then. Right. That's one thing I feel like I was very good about was developing players.
Yep.
The biggest reason why I know I wasn't ready to be a head coach. And listen, there's some days even today, like I'm like, man, like I have a lot to learn, right? No matter what.
Right.
One of the things that I look back on now and know why I was not a good head coach was because I did not value culture enough as a young coach. I thought, be talented, learn the game, and move on. And I did not really understand. I didn't place value. I understood culture. I didn't place enough value on it, and that's where I think I really missed the mark.
So
I tell you what, culture means like life. I can't tell you.
No, this is good. This is cool, man. He's learned. He's into it. I love it. All right. So three key things I want to talk about here. One is tell us about the university baseball up there. And I'm a New England lover, man. I love Maine. I love it. I love the cold. Like, so have you fallen in love with being up where you are? Tell me about just Maine in general and the university and just baseball up in that area.
Well, this is like such a unique place because there's only one Division I program, right? There's only one Division I university in Maine. There's professional sports teams, but they're minor league, right? So there's no major sport team, right? Everything that really revolves around professional athletics is in Massachusetts,
right?
Hockey is king up here. Hockey is, and it's awesome. Like, man, like it is the coolest. It is the coolest thing. The best way of putting it is that we are, if hockey draws so much attention here, this is a big time school feel being at a mid-major level, right? So, you have the sporting events on campus. Everyone shows up to, right? Like people turn out to these events and there's a real follow, right? I mean, Bangor Daily News, our Portland Press Herald, whatever it might be, they follow major newspapers. They follow sports for Maine. They want, people want to see this place do well, but like in anything else, right? There's people that want to see it do well, but there's also people that want that are rooting for it to go down, which I think is really cool. I'm a big fan of being booed, because the one thing is that no one boos the worst players.
Right. You're absolutely right. Yes.
So like for me, like that's the one thing, like, so that's something that's unique to here that I didn't understand coming from Manhattan College, right? Like from a different place, we are the market in a way up here.
Right.
And that's where when I hear schools talk about, bigger programs, better programs, talking about what it's like, it sounds closer to Maine for me in many ways, because we are the show, right?
Right.
It's cold, it's dark, and you know what? It is what it is. I don't love that aspect of it, but one thing I will tell you is that I think it makes recruiting very easy. And it goes in both ways, because the kids that show up to here typically aren't being like, hey, let's go up to Maine and like try it out.
Right.
You go up to Maine, you're going, hey, I'm going to be in Maine. I know it's cold. I know it's dark. I know we're going to work our butts off. I know we're going to have to practice indoors. I know we're going to have all the cards are not going to be for you, except you're going to be insanely supported by the administration. You got a community behind you. You have great facilities. You have people that really care about you. And quite honestly, when it's not terribly cold up here, this place is really second to none as far as I'm concerned, as far as like living and life and like being able to develop as a student athlete up here. I don't think there's any. I'll put it against any school in the country. And I mean that. I'll put it against any school in the country about the ability for you to develop here as a man or a woman, baseball player, student, just person in general. Like you can't. It's hard. It's hard to beat up here.
Well, you mentioned recruiting, which is kind of the next thing I was going to talk about. I like your style from my end when I'm talking to you about players that I'm working with. You're like, listen, if I got to chase this dude down and this dude's not interested in Maine or he's not going to communicate, dude, go take a hike, man. Like you're either all in. I love that about you. And I think that is really why you're good at what you do. Because you talked about as a younger kid not really liking the scouts or recruiting, but I think you're really good at what you do because you're like, listen, here's what I'm looking for. If this kid's all in on us, I'm all in back. But if not, I think just as you said, this place isn't for everyone. So I want to know if you're in or not. And if you're not, then I'll move on to the next kid. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and it's not about being all in for me, right? So like I'm going to send out 1 million text messages, right? And usually my first text message is something along the lines of, hey, this is Nick Derba, head baseball coach at University of Maine. If you don't have interest in us, like let me know. And if you do, I'll expect to hear from you within the next 24 hours. Most of the time, kids get back to me and say, hey, Derbs, thanks, but no thanks, or hey, I'd love to hear from it. The only thing I really want, the only thing I'm really looking for is if you're a person that can value somebody else's time. Mm-hmm. That is really what I'm trying to find out. Because if you can value somebody else's time, then you've already checked off one of the most important boxes for me. You have enough respect for another person. And that's what it comes down to. When you don't respond back to somebody, right? That's probably the same kid that's going, I'm texting you right now. Why aren't you getting back to me at this moment? And I don't want that. Now,
right.
And I know this. People are going to respond very differently, okay, to Nick Derba's text versus somebody that's, if it's Tim Corbin, and I understand that. And some people won't. But ultimately, I understand that. But I'm not Tim Corbin. I'm Nick Derba. If you're not going to be able to respond back to me in a way that shows that you have at least a mutual respect for me as a person, I don't want to deal with you. See you later.
And this goes back to what you said earlier. I mean, the other path you could have taken is a pediatrician. Why? Because you want to help people and you want to have people engaged, et cetera. So obviously they have to be a talented baseball player. You wouldn't be reaching out. But right, I think it's this character and this respect back and forth that is important to you from what I've seen. And I think that's fantastic. two other kind of topics, which will be our last two. Do you have, you talked about culture. Does Nick Derba have a coaching style? Is there something you look for in players, or the best players you've had succeed over the year? Do they have certain characteristics? I guess to restate it is there a particular way you go about bringing out the best in everybody?
So what I actually expect from our players, I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit from Ludacris, but I want animals on the field, and I want gentlemen on the other side of the lines, right? I want guys that, if you were still allowed to run the catcher over, would run their mother over at the plate to score a run, but then be at her house hugging her at the end of the day, right? That's what I want. And that's what we talk about. I mean, we talk about, this is about competing. It's about, you are never guaranteed anything ever at any moment except for complete and utter honesty and our effort. Everything else, Jeremy Payne might be the best player I'll ever coach. Quinn McDaniel, Jeremiah Jenkins, you want to talk about Nick Sinicola, you want to talk about any of these guys that are playing professionally, they had to compete every day because it is my job to try to replace you. And you can replace yourself by getting better. But that's it. That's it. And that's upfront. I understand in this world of the transfer portal, people don't like it. You don't need to like it. This is we choose, right? I don't use the word family ever. Okay. I never use the word family because, as far as I'm concerned, you are not stuck with me. We choose to be friends. We choose to be somewhere, right? So we're not locked in. We don't share the same name. We choose to be together, which in many ways to me is much more powerful. But this is how it is. And birds of a feather flock together, as they say, right? Some guys show up here and they're like, yo, Derbs, this is crazy. What are we doing? But this is what we do. I want guys that are alpha blood. They want to, if you don't need baseball in your life, this isn't the place for you. I need it. I will not be me without it. And good or for bad.
No, you bring up something that's so key. It just comes down to, do you just want to compete? And as we alluded to earlier, I think a little bit of what's missing, and I'm dealing with younger kids. I'm dealing with high school kids mostly, but I'm like, what are you thinking about on the mound in a game? It's like, well, my front side. What are you thinking about when you're hitting at the plate? Well, I'm thinking about taking the ball. It's like, dude, there's a guy 60 feet across from you. You both have a weapon. Bring it on. Who's going to win? Let's just straight up compete. And yes, the mechanics matter, but there's a time and place. So I love that. I mean, and I asked that to George Brown, pitching coach from St. John's, who was really, really good. And he goes, and I said, hey, do you prefer multi-sport kids or baseball kids? He goes, I don't care if they play 10 sports or pitch their whole life only. As long as they want to compete and kick somebody's butt, that's all I'm looking for, which is basically, in essence, what you said. You did mention it, and I just out of curiosity, the portal, is it something you wish would go away? Do you like part of it? I mean, I'm talking to a lot of coaches, and I'm trying to tell them about 26s that I'm working with. They're like, dude, give me 2 more weeks to sort through this portal thing, and then I'll hear about you guys. So how do you view it? Do you go, hey, this is great, this is both ways? Or do you I just wish this would just turn this thing off and never have it?
I'm the ultimate fence straddle in so many ways. So I like it and I hate it in both ways, right? So what I'll tell you that I love this about the portal is that it has slowed high school recruiting down to the point where I believe it needs to be. And you know what? I would love to see high school recruiting continue to slow down, because what I do believe is that you'll see better players, less injuries, and the portal in and of itself will start to slow down, because the decision's going to be made later. So that's what I love about it. I love that aspect of it. What I don't like about the portal is that it's not regulated yet. What we see today, it shouldn't be this way, because here's the thing about the transfer portal. This is not even a legal system within professional sports.
Right.
We're somewhere in between anarchy and chaos. We're not in any sort of organized anything. The only thing organized about is that it is great for players to have the opportunity to go and seek something out, that if they are unhappy, that's fine. I understand that piece. I understand that entirely. It is what it is. I just think that overall there need to be some guardrails that need to be put on. That would certainly be another topic of conversation another day. But I mean, I think that overall, we're going to get burnt by it. Like we're going to lose players we don't want to leave. But like at the same time, like I can't really be that mad because I've put in really good. I've told very nice kids who are good ball players just this year that they have to leave because we think we can be better. It goes both ways, right? It's not like, if the portal is part of our everyday, and like anything else, it has many, many pros, it has many, many cons, but it's up to us to make sure that it can be a system that can at least benefit both parties more often.
Yeah, I look at it this way, which may not be the correct way, but like, let's say you had a kid who was at Maine 4 years. One of the years was a redshirt injury, and he's having an unbelievable senior year. And he goes, listen, I can go play at Miami for my last year for X amount of maybe NIL money. I would be like, dude, that's awesome. Congratulations. What I don't like is the kid that's there as a freshman or a sophomore that's like, Derba's screwing me. I'll go somewhere else and it'll all work there. I think it gives kids a somewhat of this way out instead of going, I'm not good enough. I'm not working hard enough. I got to get better. This is the reality. I think it gives a way out of work. Sometimes it's an excuse. I'll just go where the coach and I just don't. That part bothers me, if you will.
Yeah, and like I understand that piece, and but right, like a lot of those times, like I think that we can mitigate certain aspects of it, like hey, if you have those conversations with kids, I mean, because the third guy is, hey, after your freshman sophomore year, I feel like I'm better than where I'm at. I'm gonna leave and test the market. That's another guy as well. But so for me, the portal, like just to go back to the second example, hey, Derba's screwing me. I'm not playing. I don't want to be here. Well, like, you know what? Good. Like, I have no personal issues with you. If you don't want to be here, you have an opportunity to leave. But that, right. And that goes back to culture, right? Like that goes back to family versus friends. The door is always open. It's up to you to stay in or leave.
Right. But a lot of times on my end, that kid will come to me and say, hey, it's been 2 years. I've only gotten 5 at-bats. And, man, I'm thinking of leaving. You think Bryant would be interested? No, they have no interest whatsoever. Maybe you can go to a D3, and maybe even there they don't want you because you got no track record, et cetera, unless they call you and you say, hey, good kid, it just didn't work here for whatever reason. He could help you at your level. But he's not going to go from Maine to an equally talented baseball school and automatically start there just because it's some new opportunity. I mean,
right. So, no. And that's true too. And I think that a lot of that stuff I think will start to kind of work itself out too. Because I can tell you that for me, I think the kids in general are actually smarter in many ways. There's certainly more information out there. And we've had some guys that have left Maine, after their 4th or 5th year, and they've gone on. I mean, we have guys in the America East that have left the America East that were draft guys. I mean, talking like they are getting drafted, and they go to a Power 5 school. They don't play, and guess what they're going to be? There's nothing wrong with it. They're going to be an accountant next year. They won't be playing pro ball, right? So I just think that more than anything else, I'm not telling kids not to say, hey, not to bet on themselves. What I am telling them is, hey, look, like, you can look at this from an analytical standpoint too. The numbers are the numbers. If you see a guy who went out and hit 370 in the America East and had, 40 stolen bases and 23 bags and transfers to a Power 5 and doesn't play for 2 years, well, like, maybe you probably should think about that, right?
Right. Exactly. All right, Nick, this has been awesome. Thank you so much after the grueling season. And then, I know now the little dead period's over with the regional, so it's back to hitting it hard in the summer, which I'll tell you is something I don't miss of being out and watching games. Listen, I don't mind watching high school games. I'm going to go watch a few today, but certain travel ball, no offense to any travel ball, but when it's every kid's out there for himself just to showcase and there's not that team competing aspect, I don't miss at all. But I know you're at work from home. You had your son. I appreciate you. You're really spending time with me. Yeah, you're the man. This has been great. And I'll talk to you soon for
Thanks
sure.
for doing this. I appreciate you. Have a good one.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening to the College Baseball Advisors podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's guest, Nick Derba, head coach at University of Maine. As a reminder, this podcast was formerly called And That's the Game podcast, presented by Pro Batter Sports, and we are now a part of the CoachCast network, where greatness listens. This is a venture of people like myself, but through all different sports, where you can really get into the niche of coaching and playing of your particular sport. Of course, this podcast focuses on baseball, with baseball players and coaches at all different levels. So again, I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Nick Derba, head coach at University of Maine, and look forward to seeing you on our next episode of the podcast. Thank you so much.